Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Eden.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Lee, it is a shame that death must come to the suburbs before America can have a national conversation on preventing school violence. In recent years, our schools have looked the other way on violence because that's what we've told them to do. And so long as that violence was in urban schools, the media was happy to look the other way too. But now the public must finally reckon with a federal policy that in essence tells teachers and principals, if you see something, say nothing, because if you do something, you might be the one to get in trouble. Nicholas Cruz was Parkland's worst-kept secret. Yet despite a string of alleged incidents, including assault, cyberstalking, weapons, and death threats, he was never arrested. Why not? Well, Broward Superintendent Runcie declared, quote, "We're not going to continue to arrest our kids." Sheriff Scott Israel said, "We will judge our success by how few kids we put in jail. Numbers first, safety second." After over 24 infractions and a failed effort at involuntary commitment, the school developed a plan. Don't let Mr. Cruz come to school with a backpack, because he might shoot up the school. Shortly thereafter, he committed an assault. Now, it used to be, before this reform, there were 4 levels of assault, and you could have a law enforcement referral for 3 of them. After, there were 3 levels of assault, and you could only have a law enforcement referral for 1 of them. Mr. Cruz was not referred to law enforcement at this time, according to records, and even if he were, Broward Sheriff's Union President Jeff Bell says that his school resource officer hands were tied because the schools didn't want the bad numbers. This matters far beyond Broward County. Superintendent Runcie has said, and I quote, "Some of my staff joke that the Obama administration might have taken our policies and framework and developed them into national guidelines." That's not funny because it's not a joke. Shortly after Broward adopted these see something, say nothing policies, the Obama administration issued a Dear Colleague letter to force school districts across the country to follow Broward's lead. Schools were put on notice. Even if your rules are fair and administered fairly, you could face a federal investigation for unlawful discrimination if different groups broke those rules at different rates. In other words, get your numbers down or else. Or else, face an investigation intended to force you to get your numbers down. Internal documents make this explicit. Investigators were on a mission to force school districts to drop traditional discipline. These so-called investigations hit hundreds of school districts serving millions of students. What appeared to be a nationwide grassroots rethink of school discipline was, in reality, largely engineered through coercion in secret by bureaucrats in the Department of Education. Now, there's no doubt they meant well. They were concerned that minority students were being punished unfairly and that these punishments were having long-lasting effects. And of course, our schools must make every effort to avoid discrimination and to foster a positive culture. But you can't make schools more fair and loving places by striking fear into the hearts of principals and teachers. Faced with pressure to get the numbers down, the easiest path is to simply not address or to not record troubling, even violent behavior. And we've seen this, according to teachers, systematically in districts from Washington, D.C. to Buffalo to Denver. Teachers are afraid to speak out. They fear retaliation from the district. They fear accusation from the media. But where their unions give them a voice, teachers tell the same horror stories. Principals doing nothing to address disorder, hiding evidence of violence, even willfully excusing clear death threats. When this was an urban problem, neither party wanted to talk about it. Republicans, because it didn't hit their kids. Democrats, because it didn't fit their narrative. This pressure must stop. Schools don't become safer when adults can't punish bad behavior. Schools don't become more caring, cooperative places through fear and coercion. Schools can only become safer and more supportive by allowing teachers who love and care for their students to do what they think's right. And it's about time for Washington to stop blaming teachers and start trusting them instead.